3 spine-chilling true tales of terror. Home Alone nighttime horrors revealed and exposed. Emma sat in her modest 2-story house, the kind that looked all too inviting during the day. She was supposed to be enjoying her weekend, home alone while her parents celebrated their anniversary. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the familiar walls felt foreign and eerie. Shadows danced menacingly, whispering secrets she couldn't hear. To drown out the creeping dread, she decided to throw a small party, inviting a handful of friends over. Laughter soon filled the air, but it was short-lived, a crinkled paper mask hiding the terror waiting to erupt as the night wore on. Giggles faded. Each friend left, their smiles slowly transforming into concerned glances, shadows gathering around Emma, engulfing her in solitude. She reached for her phone, scrolling through social media, her heart racing when she stumbled upon posts about strange disturbances shared through their once peaceful neighborhood. "Did you hear those screams last night?" One post read. "What's going on over on Maple Street?" A chill rushed down her spine as if someone had whispered her name in the dark. When her last friend left, the silence roared around her, palpable and oppressive. The thrill she'd felt moments ago evaporated, replaced by an unbearable weight of isolation. Then her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You should go check upstairs," it said, icy and unsettling. Emma shivered, her pulse quickening. It had to be a prank. Still, the air felt different, heavy, thick with a dread she couldn't shake. The once inviting spaces of her home began to take on sinister forms. A creak echoed from above, not the playful sounds of the evening, but a secret whisper of uncertainty. Emma's heart thudded in her chest as panic seeped in. She crept up the stairs, each step feeling like walking on ice. The familiar creaks sounded like warnings, urging her to turn back. There was nothing, only a shadow slipping beyond her periphery. Teasing her sanity, she returned to the living room, desperately seeking comfort. But every corner was now tainted with tension. What if her parents were in danger? What if the whispers were true? The local lore she'd ignored for years flooded her mind, the tale of a missing child, the haunted house across the street. She quickly searched the web, hoping it was just an urban legend. Yet the deeper she dug, the more unsettling the truth became. Local authorities dismissed concerns. One headline blared. "They didn't know. They didn't care." Did they even believe her? Before she could collect her thoughts, the lights flickered and her phone rang. She answered, breath hitching. Nothing but silence. Heart pounding, she slowly walked toward the darkened hallway, every instinct screaming at her to run. But Emma couldn't leave it like this. She had to discover the truth before it swallowed her whole. She gripped her flashlight tight, illuminating the staircase leading to the second floor. But instead of peace, she heard something: laughter, soft and innocent yet chilling. It felt wrong, taunting her like a sinister specter from the depths of childhood nightmares. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she hesitated on the threshold, time thudded loudly in her ears. Moments felt like hours, and the room darkened with each tick of the clock. The feeling of being watched overwhelmed her. Emma could sense the malevolence in the air, as if the very walls were closing in, and she was not alone, not in her home, not in her own mind. Panic gripped her tightly. She needed answers, not just for herself, but for the secrets buried beneath the surface of her family's past. As the first floor creaked under the weight of something sinister lurking nearby, Emma stepped forward, flashlight wavering in her trembling hand. Each creak was a whisper of warning, and somewhere above, that laughter echoed again, tender but taunting, sending her heart racing. Facing the ghosts of the past was the only way forward. She had to uncover what had been hidden for too long before. Like the others, she became just another secret. The laughter danced through the air again, a chilling melody that twisted Emma's stomach into knots. She could feel her heart pounding against her ribs, a wild drum echoing her dread. The darkness of the hallway loomed ahead, stretching shadows that clawed at her resolve. She took a deep breath, its cold air stinging her lungs, and stepped forward, drawn by the sound, against her better judgment. The staircase was narrow, each step like a hesitant heartbeat, the floorboards protesting beneath her weight. As she ascended, memories of childhood games echoed within those walls, bright and innocent, now twisted into something grotesque under the weight of her anxiety. Just a few feet away, laughter lingered, innocent yet coarse, drifting like smoke and wrapping around her, suffocating her courage. "Who's there?" Her voice trembled, sounding small in the suffocating darkness. No response came, only the laugh that danced down the corridor, pulling her in first into silence and then into fear. As she reached the landing, an overwhelming sense of foreboding washed over her. The flashlight flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to pulse with each flicker. She fought to steady her hand, but her nerves betrayed her. The laughter morphed into a whisper, a wind brushing against her ear. "Come play." Emma froze. The air crackled, alive with a dreadful energy. She strained to remain calm, reminding herself this had to be a trick of her mind. The stories she'd read clung to her thoughts, reminding her of the child who had vanished nearby. Taking another breath, she turned toward the source of the sound. The plush carpet, usually comforting, felt sinister beneath her feet. One step after another, she approached the closed door at the end of the hall. It stood ajar, perhaps an invitation or a warning. With a deep lurch in her stomach, she pushed the door open. The hinges creaked like a faded ghost of the past. Inside, the room was draped in shadows, furniture veiled in an eerie stillness. Dust particles danced in the beam of her struggling flashlight, and then she saw it, a child-sized silhouette sitting in the corner near the window. "Emma," it whispered, a voice sweet like honey but dripping with malevolence. "Why did you leave me?" Her breath hitched in her throat. Memories clawed at her psyche, times long forgotten, an echo of betrayal. It was a name she had pushed into the dusty recesses of her mind. The mirror cracked in the dim light, distorting her reflection, warping her sense of reality. "No, you're not real," she spat out in defiance, knowing it somehow to be true yet feeling the power of the force gripping her will. "Play with me," it beckoned, the laughter returning, swirling, weaving a sinister melody that filled the air like a thick fog. The shadows shifted, and the figure seemed to grow taller, moving closer, eyes bright and menacing. Her heart raced as she stumbled backward, though her body felt tethered to the spot. A chilling realization settled in her gut. This was no mere trick. Something bound to her, something akin to an ethereal ghost, had lain dormant for years, waiting for the right moment to rise. With every instinct roaring in her, Emma spun, determined to escape the room. But the floor seemed to grip her feet, unyielding, like it had stories to tell that she had not yet unraveled. The laughter swirled into manic cackles, pinpricks of fear lighting up Emma's spine. She was in the grip of something ancient, something that knew her name. The shadows suffocated her, whispering secrets, demanding she join the uninvited playdate. What price would she pay to uncover the truth? And if she did, would she play with them too? The door slammed shut behind her, locking her fate within the darkest recess of her home. As the oppressive silence filled the air, a new sound rose among the whispers, a low, rhythmic thud, like a heartbeat beyond the walls. A heart that wasn't her own, drawing nearer, pulsing with malevolence. Emma turned, a cold chill sparking a primal urge to flee, but where would she go when the shadows were everywhere? She was about to learn that running might not be an option. The heartbeat grew louder, and Emma felt it reverberate through her bones. Panic clawed at her throat as she twisted her head toward the walls, where the sound seemed to seep in like poison. It pulsed with a mocking rhythm, a sadistic reminder that she was never truly alone. "Emma," the voice echoed again, softer this time, coaxing her with deceitful sweetness. "Why won't you play?" Every shred of courage she possessed fought hard against the creeping dread. She wasn't a child anymore. She had moved on, buried the past. But here it was, clawing its way back, resurrecting a nightmare hidden under layers of forgotten memories. Her heart raced faster, and she scanned the room. The corners stretched into darkness, the dusty furniture looming like silent witnesses. Suddenly, the shadows gathered, coalescing into something more solid, more threatening. Emma's breath quickened as she backed away, until her spine hit the wall behind her. The cold would biting into her. She was trapped. "Play with us, Emma." The voice rose in pitch, an unsettling harmony that twisted into a chorus of laughter, echoing off the walls, each note sharper than the last. In that suffocating moment, she remembered the stories the ones whispered among neighbors, the tales about the missing child, the one who had vanished years ago. The shadow in the corner shifted again, and the figure smiled, wide and jagged, teeth glistening like shards of broken glass. "No," she shouted, half in defiance, half in desperate hope it would listen. "You aren't real." "Oh, but I am." The laughter morphed into a throaty giggle that took on a life of its own. "I've always been with you." A sudden rage sparked within her, trying to break free of the fear knotting in her gut. She lunged toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic coursed through her, an electric shock as she threw her body against it again and again. But the portal remained a cruel barrier to the outside world. The room seemed to close in, shadows twisting like tendrils of smoke reaching out for her. She clenched her fists, determined not to cower any longer. "Leave me alone," she screamed, the sound defiant yet tremulous. Instinctively, she turned her flashlight toward the figure, its beam cutting through the darkness, revealing a face that contorted into agony and rage. "Why did you leave?" it screeched, the mirth evaporating into a howl. "You were supposed to stay." Fleeting images surged, sunlight filtering through trees, laughter spilling from carefree lips before darkness drowned them, crushing the beauty with despair. Emma felt her resolve falter, but she pushed it back. "I didn't leave you." But her words fell into the abyss, swallowed whole by the laughter that rose like a tide. The rhythmic thud continued, syncopating with her heartbeat, a reminder that whatever stalked her was still there, waiting. Suddenly, the laughter ceased, replaced with a stillness so profound that it made her skin crawl. The shadows lingered, nearly tangible, brushing against her like phantom fingers. Then came the whisper, warm and sinister, wrapping around her like a blanket. "Our game can only begin when you accept." Before she could think, she felt fingers gripping her wrist, cold as death. Panic surged anew as she turned, wrenching her arm free. The walls shook with an overwhelming force, a pulse of darkness, willing her to concede. Heart pounding, she made her decision. She took a shaky step toward the window, the only way out she could see, and as she reached for the latch, a chill shot through her, freezing her in place. The figure loomed larger, laughter twisting back to its sinister cadence. "Don't go, Emma. We're just getting started." The very air thickened, pushing back against her resolve. Now, as she faced the window, the shadows writhed in anticipation, and the thud sounded louder, beating in time with her frantic heart. Could she unlock the truth buried within before it pulled her under? Or was the darkness awaiting her final, damning submission? The answer hovered just out of reach, and the chilling laughter echoed still, reminding her that the game was far from over. As she felt the weight of the room pressing down on her, she knew one thing for certain. Escape was just the beginning. What horrors awaited her on the other side? Emma's fingers trembled as they brushed against the cold, rusty latch of the window. The laughter seemed to coil around her like a serpent, tightening its grip, wrapping her in an embrace that felt anything but safe. She could no longer tell where the shadows ended and the reality began. "Stay with us, Emma," the figure chanted, its voice a dissonant harmony that echoed inside her head. "You'll never be alone again." The words made her stomach churn, a horrific blend of longing and fear. She hesitated, her heart pounding, drowning out the laughter that crescendoed around her. Why did it sound so familiar? She shook her head, trying to push those memories away, but they looped back like a broken record. With a surge of determination, she yanked the window open. The creaking sound split the suffocating silence of the room. A bitter wind rushed in, cold and sharp against her skin, a sharp contrast to the stifling atmosphere she had just escaped. But the shadows didn't recede. They twisted and danced, morphing into grotesque shapes, reaching for her like desperate hands. Emma, the voice whispered again, close now, almost intimate. We just wanna play. Play. That word twisted in her mind, linking her childhood games with something vicious and malevolent. Was this truly a game? Just a few feet away lay the open world. The streetlights flickered dimly, casting weak halos of illumination on the ground. But escaping into the night also meant leaving behind the ghosts of her past, the guilt that had anchored her to this place. Suddenly, a crack of thunder surged through the air, punctuating her moment of indecision. The lights flickered, and in that instant, the shadows lurched forward as if rising from the ground itself, black and swirling, reaching closer than ever before. Desperation clawed at her throat. What would it take to release herself from this prison? Play, Emma. Play or be left behind. The figure's manic laughter ricocheted off the walls, shaking the very foundations of her resolve. With a primal scream, she lunged through the open window, hurling herself into the night. Cold air bit at her as she landed hard on the grass below, a heavy thud echoing into the stillness. For a moment, she lay there, gasping, heart racing. She had escaped, but the laughter continued, a haunting melody that wrapped around her mind. It was a promise and a threat she would always belong to them. Rising slowly, Emma could feel the darkness swirling at the edges of her vision, a constant reminder of the figures waiting for her return. She looked back at the house, its windows dark and still, like a row of dead eyes staring back with a sorrowful hunger. The wind whispered secrets she didn't want to hear. Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a brief flash of light breaking through the enveloping dread. She pulled it out, the screen illuminating her face. It flickered, a notification of a missed call, the name sending ice coursing through her veins. Laura. Someone from her past. Someone she thought she had left behind. Panic gripped her heart. I can't go back. But the shadows danced closer, whispering, waiting. All at once, she realized the game wasn't just inside the house. It had followed her into the outside world. Gritting her teeth, she turned to run, determined to escape the night and the grotesque laughter echoing in her mind. But as she sprinted into the dark, a chilling realization sunk in. If they would play with her, could they take from her too? A sudden impulse pulled her to the nearest alley. The darkness beckoned her, and as she ducked into the shadows, Emma felt the weight of something lurk behind her, weaving through the haze of light. What had she unleashed? As she ran deeper, her phone buzzed again, another notification. Once more, she hesitated, caught between the cold fear gripping her heart and the rush of adrenaline. She would need answers. But what if the answers were darker than she could bear? In the distance, the sound of laughter exploded, echoing through the streets, louder and closer than ever. Emma had to know. She had to confront her fears. What awaited her at the end of this twisted journey? Would she find the truth, or would it consume her? The alley swallowed her whole, shadows wrapping around her like a cloak. Emma's breath came in quick bursts as her heart hammered against her ribs. The distant laughter swirled through the narrow passageway, a cruel reminder that she had not escaped but only exchanged one prison for another. Rounding a corner, she pressed her back against the cool, damp wall, trying to blend into the darkness. Her fingers fumbled for her phone, desperately seeking the light. A moment of clarity flashed in her mind. Maybe calling Laura would help. But then a sliver of doubt gnawed at her. What if Laura was part of this twisted game? A sudden noise broke her concentration. It came from deeper in the alley, light footsteps pattering against the ground, too rhythmic, too deliberate. The echo of the laughter danced closer, morphing into whispers filled with promises interlaced with malice. "We're coming for you, Emma, stop," she shouted, though the sound felt hollow in the cold air. The shadows thickened, pressing in on her, taunting her with the memories of laughter from her childhood. They were so familiar, those happy days morphed into something grotesque. What had once been a source of joy was now a twisted reminder of the innocence lost. something stirred in the darkness ahead. She squinted, trying to make out the figure that moved away from the light. It was small, almost childlike. A chill crawled down her spine as she recognized the twisted contours of a face. "Emma, come play with us," the voice was high-pitched, echoing with unrestrained glee. A chilling mimicry of everything she once held dear. Her body clenched tight, instincts screaming at her to run. They wanted her to join them, to play their demented game. She turned to flee, but the laughter returned, louder than before, a cacophony that pierced through her thoughts. They were everywhere, shadows blending into one another, surrounding her, gripping her with invisible claws. Panic surged as she stumbled through the darkness. Each step felt heavier, the shadows latching onto her skin like hungry vines. The laughter twisted into a haunting song that ricocheted off the alley walls, filling the void around her. She felt small, a flickering candle in a turbulent wind. "Where are you going?" Another voice called. This one was more mature, deeper, and tinged with mockery. Emma's pulse quickened as she sensed it approaching. Something sinister lurked just behind her. "We need you." It walked closer, each footfall heavy with intent. She pressed her back harder against the wall as the figure bathed in the dim light of a distant street lamp. Recognition washed over her, one of the children from her past. Tears pricked at her eyes. It couldn't be Laura? She stammered, a desperate plea to grasp hold of any remnants of reality. But the face twisted further into a parody of the girl she'd known. There were no recognizable features, just a sickening, perpetual grin gleaming against the backdrop of darkness. The walls closed in on her. The laughter had morphed into something more than just sound. It was a living thing, a shrieking creature with an appetite, gnawing at her sanity. If she didn't escape now, they would drag her into a world where nothing was sacred, where games turned into traps. She pushed away from the wall, her instincts screamed to flee again. But as she turned to run, the world shifted. Her phone buzzed once more, the insistent vibration penetrating the oppressive darkness. Glancing down, she saw another notification, the dreaded words shine ominously against the background. "Do you want to play, Emma?" Emma froze, paralyzing dread wrapping around her heart. She felt them closing in, shadows ready to snatch her back. Would she run into the light, or would she be swept back into their embrace forever? A decision loomed before her. But could she truly escape? Or had the game already chosen her? The air thickened around Emma, as if the shadows were pressing closer in anticipation. Her heart raced, emotions colliding: fear, anger, confusion. Standing there, her breath stilled, she felt the weight of a million memories flooding back. "Play?" she whispered to the darkness, her voice trembling. But the shadows didn't answer. They rolled forward like a living tide, and she sensed the laughter hardening into something more sinister. With a surge of instinct boiling within her, she pushed herself away from the wall and sprinted towards the faint light at the mouth of the alley. Her feet pounded against the ground, but each step echoed back at her, mocking. "You can't run from us, Emma." The voices swirled like a storm, surrounding her, amplifying the urgent dread gripping her stomach as she neared the edge. Her phone buzzed again, the sound sharp in the suffocating silence. She almost turned to check, but a fleeting figure darted in her peripheral vision. A child? No, something worse, something form-fitting into the fabric of the night. She could feel its gaze boring into her back, and the instinct to flee flared hotter. Emma pressed harder, her legs a blur beneath her. She burst through the alleyway into the street, the moonlight stark and biting. For a moment, she thought she was safe. But then she heard its footfalls behind her, quick as lightning, heavy with purpose. She turned, dread clenching in her chest. What would she find? The shadows poured from the alley like liquid darkness, forming into grotesque shapes that twisted and morphed, echoing her worst fears. The childlike whispers twisted into one consolidated voice, gravelly and crisp. "You can't escape forever." Emma scuttled to the side, seeking shelter in the embrace of a nearby storefront. She darted behind an old courier van parked on the curb and peered around its edge, her body trembling. The shadows spilled out, filling the street in a thick mist. Unseen, She held her breath, watching as they gathered and pulsed like a living entity. One figure stood apart, casting an elongated shadow, a silhouette far more defined than the rest. "Come back, Emma," it called out, the sing-song voice chilling her to the marrow. The light around her flickered, the fear of illumination threatening to expose her. Desperate and trapped, she spotted the alley again, the unknown deeper than the claustrophobic shadows. But going back meant confronting the grotesque remnants of her past. Heart racing, she darted toward a nearby dumpster, ducking down, praying the darkness would swallow her whole. Through the beats of silence, she could hear them whispering to each other, their rancid voices cloaked in excitement. "She was ours long before soon she'll play." The words twisted into her mind like a parasite, planting seeds of doubt. Had they been watching her all these years? Was this her reckoning? Emma's mind spun as terror and a desperate need for survival intertwined. Would she yield to their call or fight against the tide of her own childhood demons? Her thoughts raced through a wild storm as the shadows danced closer. With a sudden surge of clarity, she knew she could not remain hidden. Heart pounding again, she had to move. She clenched her fists, ready to confront the source of their dark games, to find Laura or whatever was left of her. As she took her first brave step, a sharp scream echoed from behind her, familiar, gut-wrenching. "Emma, help!" It wasn't absurd. It wasn't playful. It was raw, desperate, and it shattered the momentary resolve she had grasped. "Laura?" she mouthed, dread clawing deeper to end that shocking heartbeat. The shadows surged forth, a living wall of darkness, isolating her from any escape. The playground had transformed into a nightmare, and she was caught in the crossfire of a new, terrible game. As the shadows closed in, their twisted glee echoing through the air, Emma realized she was no longer just running for her life. She was on the verge of unraveling a truth buried deep within the truth of what happened all those years ago and how it led her here. But time was running out. The final voice dropped to a chilling whisper. It's time to play. What truth awaited her within the heart of the shadows? Could she defy them and uncover the answers? Or was she already too far gone? The shadows writhed closer, a living swirl of malevolent energy pulsating under the moonlight. Emma's heart raced as she strained against the panic choking her. "Laura!" she screamed, her voice cracking, both a plea and a challenge. But the only response she received was the sinister laughter, echoing off the walls like a cruel taunt. It grew louder, sharper, biting through the cool night air, peeling away fragments of her courage. With a sudden jolt, Emma turned from the darkness, choosing to bolt away from the gathering whispers. Her feet carried her blindly down the street, each beat of her heart pounding like a war drum. She thought of Laura. The image of her friend, lost in the shadows, fueled Emma's determination. But as she ran, the night turned treacherous. Each shadow she passed seemed to reach out, scraping against her arms like icy fingers. Dread filled her veins with a chilling venom. The taste of fear turned sour in her mouth. Just ahead, a flickering streetlight cast a feeble halo around the entrance of a nearby park. Desperate to find refuge or answers, Emma veered into the darkness beneath the gnarled trees. The branches twisted like skeletal hands overhead, closing her in. "Where are you?" she gasped, breathless. The howling wind seemed to respond, shooting through the maze of leaves, rattling them like a warning. Suddenly, that same childlike voice she had heard before, sing-songy and mocking, called out again. "Come play with us, Emma." Instinctively, she ducked behind a thick oak, her breath hitching as the shadows shifted around her. The faint light from the street barely penetrated the looming trees, leaving her in an almost total void. For a moment, she thought she could hear something else, something beneath the laughter, a soft cry. Emma, the voice was faint, but it carved through the night like a knife. It was definitely Laura. "Where?" Emma's voice trembled. "Where are you?" A rustling noise nearby jolted her. The shadows flickered and danced, but one dark shape moved slower, almost deliberate. She squinted, heart racing, as the figure approached. It was small, childlike. "Laura?" The figure stepped into view. It had the outline of a child, but as it came closer, Emma's stomach lurched. The face was familiar yet utterly wrong. Their eyes shone with a void of darkness, a twisted glee stretching across a visage that was once innocent. "Why are you hiding?" it asked, voice dripping with sickening sweetness. "Get away from me," she cried, backpedaling as waves of nausea washed over her. The shadows whipped around the figure, solidifying into grotesque shapes, fangs glinting in the muted light. "Please come play," it cooed, voice shifting sinister and playful, every syllable ripping through Emma's resolve. Shaking her head, Emma turned to run again. The landscape morphed into a labyrinth of terrifying memories. Her childhood home loomed in her mind, a phantom that drew her back, a house that once held laughter but now echoed with betrayal. She sprinted toward her subconscious, where it lay buried beneath the weight of darkness. She could no longer hide. Gritting her teeth, Emma took a deep breath, grasping hold of whatever strength remained. As she sprinted deeper into the park, she yelled, "I'm not afraid of you." But the shadows chuckled, starting to converge again. "Oh, Emma," they hissed, "fear is what makes you so delicious." Deep inside, she felt the truth stirring, the hidden memories clawing to be unleashed. What did they want from her? What had happened to Laura and her innocence? The laughter grew louder, echoing through the trees, and as Emma turned, desperately searching for escape, something inside her snapped. The line between her reality and the nightmare blurred. "Time to play," the grotesque chorus called out. Emma stumbled, grappling with the weight of her own turmoil. The very ground beneath her feet began to tremble, and a chilling thought flooded her mind. What if the game had already begun? What if she was merely a pawn, tangled in their dark web? As she fought against the gathering storm of shadows, the last tendril of doubt wrapped around her heart. "Come play," the voice edged, drawing nearer, the shadows stirring. Emma's eyes widened as the figure emerged again, revealing something she never expected, a familiar face twisted by the darkness. A revelation loomed behind the sinister mockery. Emma had to uncover it before she lost herself completely. Would she find Laura or become just another plaything of the night? Just as the world around her pulsed with terrible anticipation, the shadows lunged forward. Emma barely registered the shattered world around her as the shadows swarmed. A scream clawed up her throat, but it never broke free. With the terrible weight of dread bearing down, she turned and sprinted, heart pounding in her ears like a war drum. Branches lashed at her as if wanting to pull her back, but she couldn't stop. Somewhere behind her, that twisted childish laughter filled the air, a melody of malice that sent ice running through her veins. "Emma, don't you want to play?" the shadows hissed, playing with her sanity, weaving through her mind with their insistent whispers. She searched frantically, praying for any sign of Laura. Time and urgency were slipping away. She could feel them draining with every passing moment, blending seamlessly into the dark gloom. With panicked breaths, Emma skidded to a halt, suddenly aware of a flicker of light deeper within the park. Could it be a way out? Or perhaps some twisted trap? "Laura!" The name exploded from her lips. "I'm coming!" The irrational surge of hope propelled her forward, urging her toward the light. Each step felt like a descent into hell, shadows clawing at her heels, pulling her back from her destination. The light flickered like a dying flame, bobbing through the trees. As she drew closer, a shape materialized before her, cloaked in darkness, just outside the reach of the glow. Emma's stomach sank. It was a twisted, taunting version of herself, a grotesque reflection that echoed her innermost fears. "Why run, Emma?" the figure asked, voice gliding smoothly like silk, smooth poison. "Don't you want to join us?" "I am not you," she shouted, voice trembling. The memories surged to the forefront of her mind, threatened by the darkness. She clamped her hands over her ears, desperately trying to drown out that vile mockery. "Everyone is here, waiting. Why are you so foolishly stubborn?" The phantom's eyes gleamed with a sick excitement that sent a fresh wave of terror crashing over Emma. But something shifted deep within her, a flicker of resistance igniting against the encroaching shadows. Because I will find Laura, she shouted defiantly. She is not part of this. Laura, the name hung insidiously in the air, an echo that twisted her heart. The laughter intensified, wrapping around her, suffocating. Emma lunged toward the light, heart racing, fueled by desperation. The shadows lunged with her, pressing close, whispering dark delights. She felt them close enough to feel their icy breath, inviting her to slip away, to join them. No, she screamed, breaking through the haze of fear. The ground beneath her feet trembled as if the very earth sensed her resolve. And then she slipped. A root, concealed in the darkness, snagged her foot, sending her tumbling to the ground. Her breath was knocked out of her. Panic surged like a tidal wave. She glanced back, eyes wide, feeling the chill silhouettes inch closer. Laura. A soft sound drifted through the air, feeble but distinct, a whisper wrapped in pain. Emma, the urgency surged back, and with it, determination. She scrambled to her feet, but the shadows shrieked, now coiling around her legs, pulling her down with voracious hunger. Join us. Laura is one of us now. The cry echoed, a chorus of disdain that taunted. Emma wrestled against despair, fury boiling in her veins. You're lying. I will find her. But the shadows tightened their grip, squeezing, cold against her skin. Emma's heart raced as she fought to escape the talons of darkness wrapping around her. Each second felt like an eternity. Out of the corner of her eye, something darted among the trees, a flicker of movement. The desperation morphed into sheer terror. It looked like Laura, frantically trying to break free from a web of darkness. Emma, help! Emma lunged toward her friend, heart thrumming wildly. The shadows shrieked in rage, slashing at her, teeth glinting in the dim light. She is ours. With the last ounce of her strength, Emma surged forward, reaching for Laura, only inches apart when their fingers brushed. Everything plunged into chaos. The world spun as shadows erupted violently, writhing, disintegrating in a cacophony of furious screams. Emma gasped as a blinding light lit the chaos, drawing her and Laura into its embrace. The darkness screeched, twisting, as it retreated for just one heartbeat, giving way to the possibility of escape. But would it last? As they tumbled through the light, the shadows shrieked ominously. You may have escaped for now. The ground shifted beneath them, and a deafening silence followed. Emma clutched Laura's hand, breathless, minds racing. Where are we? Is it over? The shadows lingered in the distance, creeping slowly back, and dread washed over her anew. Not yet, Laura whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Emma felt it, a new fear curling around her heart. You have no idea what lies ahead with that. The ground trembled again, and something ancient stirred within the darkness. What awaited them? A deeper darkness, or something worse? The ground stopped shaking, but the air was thick with tension. Emma still held Laura's hand tightly, their fingers interlocked like a lifeline. They stood in a dim expanse, surrounded by an oppressive silence that weighed heavily on their chests. Felt wrong. Something was watching them. Emma, we need to. Laura started, but a sound, a low growl interrupted her. It rumbled through the air, a sound that curdled their blood. They turned, searching the shadows, but there was only darkness. Just beyond their reach, shapes warred against the light that had briefly saved them. Stay close, Emma whispered, her voice trembling, not quite believing her own command. The figures in the shadows twisted and writhed, their forms defying logic and bending into grotesque shapes. Whispers swirled around them, an unending chorus of lost souls. Help us, find us, they pleaded, a cacophony of voices overlapping, each tinged with despair. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, clutching Laura's hand tighter. We can't listen to them. But the shadows only grew bolder, creeping closer, fueled by their fear. Why resist, sister? You could join us. The voices crooned, intertwining with the very fabric of darkness. Emma opened her eyes to find the remnants of what they had escaped. The figures from the park had morphed, taking on the anguished faces of loved ones lost. Mom? Dad? Laura's voice wavered, confusion mingling with horror. No, it can't be. They're gone, Laura. Emma shouted, shaking her friend. Don't listen to them. They're not real. She felt a cold sweat trickle down her spine as the shadows danced closer, pressing against them from all sides. A piercing scream erupted from the darkness, freezing them in place. Join us, Emma. Laura. Be free. The shadows blended into one creature, a monstrous amalgamation of despair and fury. Fangs gleamed in the sliver of light, razor-sharp and glistening with malevolence. Emma's stomach dropped when it lunged forward, its intent clear. Run! Emma shrieked, pulling Laura with her. They darted in the opposite direction, heartbeats roaring in their ears. Branches cracked beneath their feet. The park transformed into a maze of torment with every step. Where do we go? Laura gasped, her eyes wide with panic. It's everywhere. I don't know, Emma admitted, sheer terror pushing her towards spontaneous decisions. But they could not afford hesitation. Adrenaline fueled their flight as the shadows pursued them like a predator chasing its prey. The whispers became howls, filling the air with harrowing notes of rage. Suddenly, ahead, a small door appeared in the trunk of a tree. It glimmered with an unnatural light, promising secret paths and the fleeting chance of escape. That way. We have to try, Emma urged. Without waiting for confirmation, they dashed toward the door. The moment they reached for the handle, a jarring howl echoed, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The shadows recoiled momentarily, hesitating. But the door wasn't just an escape. It was a portal into the unknown. A clash of emotions flooded Emma's heart. Hope battled against doubt. Could they step through and emerge whole? Or would it seal their fate within the darkness? Emma! Hurry! Laura cried, racked with fear and desperation. The shadows grew more aggressive, launching themselves at the girls in a final, desperate act. They burst through the door just as the darkness surged forward. A blinding light enveloped them, pulling them in, plunging them into a white void. Silence fell, a gentle cradle compared to the chaos they had just escaped. But that peace shattered when heavy breathing echoed around them, relentless and far too familiar. Welcome back, a voice whispered from the darkness behind the light. Emma's heart sank. Where were they now? Could there ever truly be an escape? Something ancient stirred once more, and a new fear gripped her. What awaited them in this unforeseen realm? They had traded one peril for a greater one, but they didn't even know the true shape of their enemy. They gazed into the swirling fog ahead, and the shadowed figures began to emerge. A new game had begun. What horrors lay ahead in this realm of unfathomable darkness? Would they find allies or enemies among the shadows? Emma had no idea, but the stakes had just grown higher. Emma and Laura floated in the expanse, hearts pounding, surrounded by an all-consuming veil of uncertainty. Felt like drifting in a dream where every thought twisted into darkness. A low, rumbling growl reverberated all around them, both familiar and terrifying. Is this it? Laura whispered, her voice barely a breath amidst the oppressive silence. Felt like the very air thickened with trepidation. They were in an uncharted realm where shadows danced malevolently, morphing into blurred edges of their past. Not yet, Emma replied, though doubt gnawed at her heart. We need to find a way out, anything. The whispering shadows grew more intense, swirling around like fog, tugging at their souls with invisible tendrils. Do you hear that? Laura's eyes widened, glancing toward a growing darkness pooling beneath them. Look closely, and the outlines of children emerged, familiar yet distorted. Emma! A voice called, drawing closer, gleeful malice echoing in its tone. You've come to play. No, Emma shouted, trying to shield her friend from the sinister allure. We're not playing. Her pulse raced at the sight of the ghostly forms, distorted versions of familiar faces. Each was a mirror reflecting her deepest fears and regrets. Suddenly, a shadow lunged forward, a figure draped in darkness but unmistakably human. Join us, it cried, a twisted replica of Laura, filled with malicious delight as it darted around them. Get away from her, Emma screeched, taking a step back, pulling Laura closer. The figure's laughter pierced through the mist, a sickening blend of childhood joy turned grotesque. "Emma, please," the figures pleaded, echoing Laura's voice. "We're waiting for you, don't you remember?" Memories flooded back, obscured by time and pain. Childhood games, laughter, the playful warmth of family, now eclipsed by dread. Emma shook her head and squeezed Laura's hand tighter. This isn't real. The air thickened, and she could feel the shadows pulsing with a life of their own, resonating with the heartbeat of the darkness. "You can return to happiness," they cooed, spectral fingers reaching for them, beckoning them to join. "No, I want to go back," Emma shouted, regaining her footing. "You don't know me. You don't own me." Suddenly, the shadows flickered, recoiling as if Emma's defiance burned them. She sensed a shift, a crack in their facade. "Laura, we need to remember who we are," she urged, squeezing her friend's hand for strength. "I don't want to forget," Laura whispered, tightening her grip on Emma. "I want to help them." "Help them? They're not helping. They're trying to trap us." Emma could hardly disguise her fear. "Listen to me. We must push through." With a newfound determination, Laura nodded slowly, igniting the spark of courage deep within. They faced the figures together, their silhouettes merging until the ghoulish laughter echoed like thunder. "No more games," Emma bellowed, her voice unwavering. She pushed against the darkness, encroaching like a tidal wave, focusing on the flickering light just ahead, pulsing gently. "Your games don't bind us," Laura echoed with fierce conviction. "We will not be prisoners of our past." The shadows swirled violently in response, the anguished cries of their friends rising higher. "Join us. You'll never be alone." Emma's gaze sharpened on the light, a beacon of hope cutting through the despair. Surrendering to the strength of their bond, she and Laura charged toward it. Filled with desperation, they embraced the radiant warmth surrounding them. As they collided with the light, exultant shouts from the shadows erupted into shrieks of fury and wails of anguish. The overwhelming power of companionship and determination surged through their bodies, driving back the darkness like a wave. The world shifted once more. The howling stopped, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. Emma opened her eyes, blinking against the brightness. She and Laura stood in their childhood backyard, sunlight filtering through the trees, illuminating the path to their house. "Is it over?" Laura asked, glancing around, uncertainty woven in her brow. Emma exhaled, relief flooding her senses. "I think so." But the whispering shadows lingered at the edges of her vision, marking their territory like fanged wolves at bay. "Remember, we're stronger together," Emma murmured, wrapping her arm around her friend. They shared a knowing gaze, their bond fortified in a way it had never been before. As they walked toward the house, the laughter faded into the distance, but haunting memories lingered, a reminder of their journey. They had conquered darkness, but the truth about their past was still buried somewhere waiting to be uncovered. When they finally stepped inside, the silence enveloped them, a warm embrace against what they left behind. They weren't just survivors. They were journeys that emerged from the shadows, determined to stride into the light. Emma's heart pulsed with hope as she turned to Laura. Together, they said in unison, a promise ringing clear in the golden air. The shadows in the corners dimmed slightly, conceding for now. But as they closed the door, Emma knew their tale was etched not just in darkness, but in the light of their resilience. What lay ahead was uncertain, but they were willing to uncover every secret on their path to healing, side by side. And just like that, their new beginning unfolded beneath the bright sky. But the lingering shadows would always whisper, warning them not to forget the game is never truly over. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see how this story ends. Your support means everything.